When in the course of human events, two amateur podcasters, one with zero experience whatsoever, come together to do a podcast about ADHD, and 50% of those podcasters are diagnosed ADHD. The other 50% is probably ADHD. It is inevitable that along the way, a step is going to be missed, or some microphone is not going to be plugged in. So for episode 7, there is not a wonderfully crisp sound coming through, but that's okay because we celebrate all of the hot messness that comes along with ADHD. Enjoy the show. Hi everybody, Dr. Erin Patterson here with the ADHD Queens podcast. And today we are going to talk about lots of different things. Well, we're going to see where this goes. Number 1. I've had, when we first started the podcast, I had a lot of people say that they would be interested in an episode where we talk about what are the weird ways that ADHD can show up. Now, that's not to say that, it's not gonna, people who don't have ADHD aren't gonna do these things periodically, but let's talk about the weird ways that ADHD can show up. And so one of the things that comes to mind is this. I had somebody talking to me the other day about, being able to pay attention while you're watching a show. I don't know if you like to watch TV or shows with the closed captions on, but for me, I want to read the words and hear the words because I'll get distracted and not be listening, and then I can at least read the word on the screen, and so I don't have to rewind it. But if I get distracted while I'm watching something and then I have to rewind it, God forbid I rewind it too far, because then I'm going to lose my attention by the time that thing comes around again, and then I have to rewind it again. So, being distracted while you're watching TV or doing other things, you're shaking your head that you do not like to have the words on. Now, do you just read the whole time? Some people hate it because they tend to look at the words more than they're looking at what's happening in the show. But for me, it's a way where I don't have to, if I get distracted while I'm watching it, it's okay because I can look and read the words if they're still on the screen. Or I can read the words in advance and we'll be able to pay attention. That's also how I studied a lot when I had stuff to study in school. I would listen to the audio as I was reading the information at the same time. And so that just works for my brain. But then some people just hate to have them on there because the words on the screen is distracting to them. And typically, I read very slowly anyway because I'm distracted and I'm having to focus. I'll read a whole entire page and get to the bottom of the page and I'll think, I know I have read all of those words, but I don't know what the heck they are. So I'm reading the words, but what's happening is because there's so much going on in your brain, the words are not going into the recall center. And so because I am distracted and doing other things, my recall center is not activated. So that's how you get to the bottom of a page and you go, I know I read every single word on that page, but I can't tell you what it says. Now I got to do a book report on this thing and I just need the Cliff's Notes. Somebody do this for me. We'll call this first section distractibility. The places that we get distracted that you wouldn't think of. So yeah, watching TV, reading, we can also get distracted while we're doing all kinds of things, right? Like I'm, supposed to be cleaning this thing and then I see something else that needs to be cleaned and now I hop over to that and I'm distracted while I'm doing that, or I'm distracted while I'm talking to people or interacting with people. Yeah, and you bounce from thing to thing trying to clean this and clean that and you go, I haven't done anything today. You've been busy all day. Ruby's making me hold her bone while she chews on it. Oh, because she's a princess or something. I also had somebody mention that, what is this freeze thing that I do where I am, watching something, and then I just like get sucked into it, and I'm like, I can't move, I can't stop watching it. Maybe I'm sitting on the bed or sitting on the toilet or standing in between this room and that room, and I just am frozen and I can't do anything. So I think there's two versions of that. I think you can get, like sucked into a shiny object sort of thing. That used to happen to me all the time. And I'm wondering now, is this one of the, clear signs of ADHD? But I think it can happen for people without ADHD too. I just haven't seen it as much, where they're looking off into space and they're not blinking, and people are going, hello. And you're like, I can see that you're waving at me. I just can't stop staring at the shiny thing. And I'm frozen. So I think people can get frozen in their phones, I don't know if something else is going on, if you're just thinking something, or if everything just like goes offline all of a sudden. Yeah, wound up. Well, the hyperactivity it shows up differently for different people. Particularly men tend to be more physically hyperactive because they're the part of their brain that is in charge of hyperactivity is bigger, and so their activity is already greater, and then the hyperactivity is even more intense than women. So hyperactivity for women, can look a lot more, socially acceptable, right? So like, let's say I'm working on some paperwork and I'm like, oh, I need to get up and go do this, or I need to get up and go do that. Let's talk about the clumsiness that comes along with ADHD a lot of times. We are in a hurry to get things done, and, oftentimes we will drop things because we are setting things down before we get to a location, or we are running into door frames because we're turning before we actually get to the opening in the door, or banging shins on beds. There are a lot of like clumsy things that happen like that. But also when you get it kind of like in an amped up hyperactive state, you may be rushing to do things, right? So you're like, I don't know, maybe you go sock sliding through the house because you're just like, I'm trying to get all this energy out. I feel good. I'm being silly. And then you fall down and bust your head or something, or God forbid, tweak a back or something when you get old. But the clumsiness and, like getting injured doing things, or even like the impulsivity. I remember years ago, when I was a case manager, we used to work in, our case manager office was right beside a Food Lion. And so we went outside for the cigarette break. There was a cart there, and Food Lion had the carts that like you could lift up like this or put down.
It's up and down. Up and down.
And so I was like, ooh, push me in the cart. This will be fun. And so I get in the bottom of the cart and they push me down this ramp into the parking lot. And as soon as the buggy got some momentum, the top thing smashed down, cracked me on the head. And I was like, ugh, now I have a concussion, because my impulsive brain was like, this is a good idea. Or, one time we were cooking in the kitchen and, we were going to use the pan that we just made bacon in or something to put the eggs in, right? But we needed the pan to cool down a little bit. And so I grabbed the pan and like go to the back door and then start to do this with the pan, because I'm going to, fan the pan to get it to cool down. But there's bacon grease in the pan. And so when I did like this, I splashed myself with bacon grease. And I was like, oh, because I just threw hot grease all over myself. But my brain was like, really, this is the quickest way to cool this down, is we just need to fan the pan so that it will cool down, not thinking that there's grease in there. So, getting hurt a lot of times can, especially in childhood, that's one of the things that they ask kids is, have you ever been hurt and not told your parents? So, because kids will often know that they shouldn't have been doing that thing, and so they've, you know, fallen out of a tree, or they've crashed their bike into something, or whatever they did, and they didn't tell anybody because, you know, they didn't want somebody to figure out that they were breaking rules, or, you know, making dumb choices or whatever, you know, to be able to recognize that, oh my gosh, like if you look back over your own history, do you have a history of clumsiness? Do you often have bruises because you've banged into things? Do you break things? I had to stop. I had to make a rule for myself that I was not allowed to throw silverware from the stove over to the sink in my kitchen because it kept breaking glass things. But it was too far to walk over there, you know, like I got stuff to do, so I'll just throw this across the kitchen, get it in the sink, and move on to the next thing. But I was like breaking mugs and things like that. So from here, you know, throw it 5 feet across the kitchen into the sink. So that's impulsivity also, and hyperactivity, you know, how it shows up in those ways. There can be intrusive thoughts with ADHD that are particularly like impulsive, like I've not thought through this, but like intrusive thoughts about like, oh, I want to, you know, pull the fire alarm, or oh, I, you know, want to strangle this person, or, you know, oh, I'm thinking negative thoughts about myself. How hot is that pan? I need to touch that, right? All humans have that kind of thing. One of my friends asked me this weekend, what do you call it when you start doing something and you have to do all of it? So this was in response to the reel that I posted about, you know, using micro goals and just doing one cabinet a day or whatever. But she said, I can't. Once I start doing something, I have to do it until it is completely done. And so she says that she only leaves enough time in the morning for her to get ready to go to work, because if she starts doing anything else, she's going to get distracted and end up being late, or feel like she can't leave until that thing is done. And I think that is, you know, we're looking at, is that hyper focus or is that hyper fixation? And I think in that sense, it's like I'm hyper fixated on getting this thing done. And so that can be, you know, if you know you have a tendency towards that, then you can't really just like do a little bit, because if I, you know, pull 2 things out of this closet, I know I'm going to just be all in, and then the whole closet's going to be out, and either I'm going to be up all night organizing this closet, or it's going to sit there for days and days. So I think that, you know, the micro goals is a good thing, but you really have to retrain your brain, and some people have to, like, I just have to save time to do all of the things because they get sucked into it and they can't stop. And you can get hyperfixated on foods, you can get hyperfixated on objects, you can get hyperfixated on lots of different things. So, you know, if it's, I got the idea, you know, oh, I need to start buying hardback or hardcover books that look old, because one day I want a library that looks like it's full of old books, even if I'm never going to read these books, you know. So then I was like, oh, I need to go buy books. And so it's like a dopamine hit. You're getting dopamine from doing the shopping, from collecting the thing, from you know, feeding that fixation. And it can happen with food. You know, I've been hyperfixated on all I want for a whole month. All I wanted to eat was rice. It didn't matter what kind of rice. Every meal just had to have rice. Mexican rice, white rice, rice and cheese, cheese and rice. You know, it didn't matter as long as there was rice involved. I wanted all of the rice. That's also happened with Chick-fil-A sandwiches. Yeah, so we can get fixated on a food, a condiment. We can get fixated on a show or an object. I think when we're hyper-focused is a little bit different, because the fixation tends to be object-based, whereas focus tends to be on task-based, right? So you might get hyper-focused on building a website, or, you know, doing a craft, or you might get hyper-focused on schoolwork if you're doing schoolwork, or a project for work or something like that. Whereas the fixation is, you know, more object-based, I think. Sensory things can also be unique in how they show up, and Sometimes being touched is part of the sensory thing. Sometimes, even if you are a person who, like, physical touch is kind of one of your love languages, so to speak, being touched sometimes can be like, oh my God, don't touch me. Like, the dogs get on me and I'm like, ugh, everybody stop touching me. And the sensory stuff can, like, my clothes, I don't want it too close to my neck, or the sleeve's too tight, or the button on jeans sometimes. Like, I had somebody once tell me that they went into rage if the belt loop on their jeans would get hung on the door in some way, and like this like confined feeling. One of my meltdown triggers before I realized it was meltdowns was people pulling on my clothes. Like, I legit pushed my sister down the stairs when we were kids. I wasn't a kid, I was in high school, maybe college, and we were walking up the stairs at my dad's house going inside, and she pulled on my shirt and I like shoved her down the flight of stairs. Now, it was only like 5 or 6 stairs, but it was still mean and I shouldn't have done it. And she got, banged up, and we had to put a frozen bag of peas on her knee or something. I don't know. I'm 8 years older than her, so if I was in high school, she was, probably starting middle school. But even as an adult, I remember years later, like, she had kids, and one of her kids went to pull on my shirt, and I was like, don't pull on my clothes. And she was like, yeah, she'll push you down the stairs. And I'm like, I would not push your baby child down the stairs, okay? I pushed my sibling down the stairs, but not nieces, nephews, or other people, okay? It was a reflex, totally. But it was all of a sudden, I felt confined and like, get off of me, kind of thing. Since then, it was at that point that I realized, okay, this is a trigger and I need to communicate this to people. Like, don't touch my clothes. It makes me want to do like things that will end me up catching the case. And you don't think, like, you're like, why is this thing making me so mad? But that can also be a weird way that it manifests, and it's definitely sensory stuff, and it's different things for different people. Ruby, can you tell the people what are some strange ways that ADHD shows up in your household? Say, my mom tells me almost every day, oh, you're getting a bath today because you stink like a dog. And she still hasn't had a bath. Tell them, what's up, Rubes? Are you just going to stay here? This is very nice. I mean, I figured you'd jump down at some point, but apparently you want to stay, and that's okay. She's like my little stinky weighted blanket, so. Dogs and other animals, you can use them like to help with that overwhelm and that sensory stuff too, because you can, not only would the weight from holding the animal be helpful, but you can like try to listen or feel for their heartbeat and take breaths to try to like calm your heartbeat down to whatever their heartbeat is. And so that's one of the exercises too that they practice in like mindfulness for like regulating just your nervous system. I think there are some sounds that are naturally calming too. So, now they've got all of the different color noises out there. We've got white noise and brown noise and green noise and whatever. And I noticed for me, I prefer really deep sounds. And so even if I'm overstimulated, like listening to, I've got, a system in my car. I'm a 40-year-old woman, like banging bass going down the street or whatever. But, my tag's rattling, like 2 midgets in the backseat wrestling and whatever that Outcast song is.
And trunk rattling like 2 midgets in the backseat wrestling. Speaker box vibrate the tag.
But the boom boom of the bass is like calming for my body. And so when I listen to the different types of noises, I like the lower ones. And I think those are like brown noise. So it's like deep water running, like big giant rivers versus, like the trickle of a small waterfall. But those different sounds can be calming too. And so, listen to different ones and figure out which color is your noise, which one calms you down better. For some people, like listening to a heartbeat or listening to the rain or listening to an ocean or crickets. Crickets would not be for me though. So some people need it to be absolutely quiet or absolutely dark, and that's, part of appeal of the noise canceling headphones and stuff too, is to be able to have some quiet in the midst of busy places. I've come up with a new segment for the show, and this is called Historical Figures and Characters Who Probably Had ADHD and we just never realized it. The first one we're going to talk about is Maria from The Sound of Music. Okay, I've watched this movie 100 million times. I'm talking about the old one where Julie Andrews, the Queen, played Maria. Well, I don't know what her last name was before she got married, but she eventually became a Von Trapp. So that song that goes, how do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? All of the things that they say in that are totally, oh my God, she has ADHD. I was listening to it driving down the road one day and I was like, this chick's got ADHD. How can I pull up these lyrics? You got your phone? History of Hawaii. Been learning about who colonized Hawaii.
Polynesians.
The Polynesians, in case you were wondering. Good for you for looking things up. What am I doing? Oh, how do you solve? I got distracted by the pop. How do you solve
Do you know who colonized Australia?
a problem?
Great Britain, that's who.
Like Maria. I just want the lyrics. Here we go. Sorry, Oscar Hammerstein and Richard Rogers. That's who wrote it. Okay. Then the one nun says, when I'm with her, I'm confused, out of focus and bemused, and I never know exactly where I am. Unpredictable as weather, she's as flighty as a feather. She's a darling, she's a demon, she's a lamb. She'll outpester any pest, drive a hornet from its nest. She could throw a whirling dervish out of whirl. She's gentle, she is wild, she's a riddle, she's a child. She's a headache, she's an angel, she's a girl. How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? Words they used to describe Maria were a flibbity-gibbet, a will-o'-the-wisp, a clown. She's late to everything. She's spinning in a field of flowers, singing. But yes, I was driving down the road and I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, she is totally all of these nuns who like have it all together and are all, you know, like prim and proper, and she's, you know, a hot mess express running through there. She's late, she didn't have her wimple on, she was, you know, on time for breakfast but nothing else throughout the day. So anyway, that was a fun realization that I had. My producer, it says also she believes that Tigger from Winnie the Pooh may in fact be diagnosable with ADHD. He definitely is hyperactive, but what other things? I don't know Tigger like that. So she's saying she read an article that says Eeyore would be depression. Who's anxiety? Piglet has anxiety.
Piglets.
What's Winnie the Pooh have? An eating disorder. Bless
I
him.
think so.
Bless him. That's another thing that can show up with ADHD too, is food is hard. So.
Okay. Winnie the Pooh is obsessive compulsive
Oh,
disorder.
Winnie the Pooh has OCD according to this
Piglet
article.
has anxiety.
Piglet has anxiety.
Eeyore is major depressive
ER. Oh, not ER. Eeyore. Major depressive disorder.
Owl is a narcissistic personality disorder.
Owl is a narcissist. What?
Tigger, ADHD.
And then Tigger ADHD. Interesting.
Conga is social anxiety.
Who?
Conga.
Who is Conda?
Conga.
Conga?
Yeah, I don't. Person in there, I guess. And Christopher Robin is schizophrenia.
Oh, Lord. And they said poor Christopher Robin has schizophrenia because he sees and talks to all of these creatures. Oh, that was Ruby. So Tigger has ADHD because he bounces around. What's his song?
I don't.
Something about
He has a song.
Tiggers are wonderful things. Yeah, there's a Tigger song.
Tigger.
Those piggies got a friend who's bouncy, flouncy, and touncy. You know who he is, so let's go meet him.
Oh, glad to meet you. Name's Tigger. T-I-G-G-R. That spells Tigger. The wonderful thing about
I figure
Tigger
it's one of the wonderful things. That's what my father, the bottoms are made up of springs. Bouncy, 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 bouncy.
fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful thing about Tigger is I'm the only one. The wonderful thing about Tigger is Tigger's a wonderful chap. You're loaded with vim and with vigor. It loves to leap in your lap.
They love to leap in your lap.
Be fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful thing.
Yes, I would say, okay, he's probably not demonstrating much of the, more internalized ADHD symptoms, but he is definitely hyperactive.
I would definitely say they're more like extreme.
Yeah, extreme versions. And, impulse control, because he's just hopping in people's laps and taking their food. Stuff like that.
Okay, so
Ruby hit that at some point.
Okay, that's why it's off balance.
So that's our two characters for this episode, Maria Von Trapp and Tigger. I just went on a vacation and we went to lots of different historical places, and one of the places that we visited was Samuel Clemens' house. You will know him as Mark Twain, and we heard lots of stories about how he would play with his kids, and they had this room in the house that they had filled up with plants, and it was not a very big room, but it had plants in it. And so the little girls would go in there, and he would have his butler go in there, and then he would crawl around on all fours roaring like he was an elephant, and they were playing safari and they were hunting him, and then the butler was the lion, and so the lion at some point would jump out and roar at the girls, and the older girls would laugh and run off, but the littlest girl, she didn't like it. But the tour guide is telling me the story of Mark Twain crawling around in this room playing safari with his children, and I'm like, wow, he's a really fun guy. And then they said that every night they would sit down in the living room or the den, and there were these objects on the mantle, and Samuel Clemens had to tell a nighttime story to the family using the objects on the shelf in the order that they were on the shelf, and every night it had to be different. And so very creative, and this happened every night. And then we were talking about something else, and he said, the tour guide said that Mark Twain, or Sam Clemens, was not very good with managing money, and he would make impulse buys and things. And at some point I said, I think he may have had ADHD. I mean, he's crawling around playing safari, telling all these stories at night, mismanaging his money, having to sell things so that he can, get things paid for or whatever. And so I thought, oh, there's a historical character that I never thought about. Maybe that's where some of his creativity came from. And when we went upstairs to look at his office, in his billiards room where he wrote his stories, he had he would handwrite, but he had to sit at a desk that faced the wall, so it didn't look out a window, and then he would handwrite the pages and pass the pages back to his assistant, who would type them, because if he didn't sit at that desk not looking out the window, then he wouldn't get the stuff written. And so I thought, this is here we are right here, right? He figured out how to do it and be successful, but distraction, impulsivity, some hyperactivity. So there's your historical figure for the episode who has some ADHD, probably.
The third one.
Well, no, so we've got two fictional characters and one historical figure. So, three pisses her off. Well, I could talk about Alexander Hamilton, but I think he was bipolar. I don't think he had ADHD. We'll have to present that at a different time.
Einstein.
I don't know enough about Einstein to talk about it.
He bought and wore the same outfit every single day. That way he didn't have to think.
I did that when I worked as a case manager.
I do that at the gym.
You're just gonna have to deal with 3.
Historical figures with ADHD. So I can't be bothered. Just go. Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein. I'm a genius.
Well, our research indicates that Thomas Edison may also have, but I don't have any stories about him to tell you because just learned this.
That's where the real invention of the light bulb came from. He just got a random intrusive thought, and he was like,
what if? I do know, I think that he is quoted to say that he learned, like 600 ways how not to make a light bulb. So he may have been hyper focused on the idea of making a light bulb, and that's maybe why we have them now. It also could just be, he had very good goal-directed persistence.
or he was crazy.
Or he just thought, I'm so close, I've got to do this. But I think, sometimes we need a little hyper focus to overcome something like that. And the creativity, that goes along with that sort of thing. Invention. Anyway, Invention. I have a quote. It's on my phone. I heard a great quote this morning that I think applies. I heard a great quote this morning. You're going to have to look it up because all of my things are occupied filming. The quote is, "Think like a queen" by Oprah. And I thought, ooh, what if we...
Think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness.
Yeah.
I can't hear me.
I know. I'm just baking in that because it's such a good quote.
Here you go.
Think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness.
By Oprah Winfrey. Oprah?
That came from the queen herself, Oprah. Yeah, I heard that this morning and I thought, oh wow, that's so great. We've come up with this whole ADHD Queens idea that, we might have ADHD, but we're queens with ADHD. And it's like, okay, so go out and do your thing. Try your thing, I don't know what I was doing when we started this podcast. All right, we've got, this is episode 7. We did it. We haven't died. Maybe we're getting a little better at it. I don't know. Somebody's fingers crossed, right? If one person said it was helpful, then I'm like, cool, it's been helpful. But it's certainly been an adventure. Oh, that's all we got for today. Hope it was interesting, at least. And there's, all the things. There's a like. You got to do the like thing. And then there's a bell to subscribe. And then you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our new beautiful website, ADHDqueens.co. And remember, we might have ADHD, but we're queens with ADHD. Non-queens welcome too. Bye.